You know, I'm an analytical with elements of OCD. So imagine being married to me.
Thought if you had OCD, it would be CDO.
There you go, because they're in the right order. There you go. That's funny. That's funny. That's funny. So,
good one.
Our spices are in the cabinet in the kitchen. There's just too many of them, so I alphabetized them. So every time I'm looking for soy sauce and it's up there where honey should be, I'm like, who moved this? Under S, not H.
That's hilarious.
Are you joking, or do you actually go that far?
No, that's the only way I can find everything.
I know. See, yeah, I married somebody that's slightly OCD as well, and now we have a son that's 6. Since he was 3, he organizes his shoes in the closet, organizes his toys, puts everything in a row.
Oh,
That's
wow.
efficient.
He sorted all of his cars, Hot Wheels in one box, Matchbox in the other, because they're different.
They are.
We're like, this poor kid got a double dose. Who the hell's going to want to be married to him?
He'll probably make a lot of money though.
Yep.
He might, if he gets his mother's math skills. My wife speaks 5 languages, does calculus with a pencil, but she's an employee. She can't understand how I'm an entrepreneur, how I'm not worried about where my next paycheck's coming from. She doesn't understand that. And I'm the entrepreneur. So if she gets my wife's brains and my work ethic, there'll be no stopping that kid. He'll be a billionaire. He really will. But the reason I'm divorced and remarried was I didn't learn the first time around that at 6 o'clock, I got permission tonight to go long, by the way, but I don't do it very often. At 6, I stand up and walk out whether it's done or not. If I need to work, I'll come back in here afterwards. And there's a few lessons as an entrepreneur I learned that if you can't do it in a 10 to 12 hour day, there's something wrong with your system. If you can't do it in 10 or 8, something wrong with your system. So start knocking things off, delegating things out, or do the Stephen Covey, the ABC. And if you don't ever get to the C, you just don't get to the C, and be honest about it. And you don't have to get everything done. And at some point, just stand up and walk out of the office and go spend time with the family. So, but we talk about learning what not to do. I'll tell you, young bucks, whatever it costs you, you spend the time with the family. Because later on, you'll realize it's not worth it. Yeah, you got all the money, but you got a 34-year-old that won't speak to you. See, I have one of those, so it's hard. But no amount of money will replace that. But we justify it early on very easily. But you pay for it later. Tax for You is our marketing educational arm. And I learned about the Installment Sale Trust in 2004. It turns out I actually did a version of the Installment Sale Trust in 1997 when I sold over 40 properties to one person. I just didn't know that's what it was at the time. I became a financial advisor late in life because I didn't want to go back to Kuwait. I didn't want to go back to the Middle East as a defense contractor. And I became a defense contractor because I lost everything in a real estate development project in 1999. When I say everything, everything. I ended up driving an $800 Ford Tempo, living in a 2-bedroom apartment with shag carpet in the bad part of town. So I went from, I had an airplane and party palace and 4-car garage and whole thing, right? So I learned a few lessons the hard way. I was a defense contractor, didn't want to go back to the Middle East. My advisor convinced me to become a financial advisor. Took all the exams, passed, and then I realized the biggest thing with clients is not about return on investments. Every advisor can do about the same. It's about taxes, controlling expenses. So taxes are just an expense and you must manage all expenses. And when you frame it that way, you're not always looking for ways to get out of taxes. You're looking at ways of managing the tax and managing when you pay it. It frames the whole paradigm towards all that very differently. So I had a client that needed to sell an apartment building. He knew about this trust thing. He couldn't find the papers on it. He gave me some information. Please find it for me. And I did. And I gained him as a client. Then friends of his wanted the same transaction. Okay. And that's how this whole thing started. Ended up sharing offices with a tax law firm for 5 years until 2 partners retired. The guy downsized. So I worked in the office with tax attorneys and a dozen CPAs for 5 years straight. We all shared offices and served the same clients. So Was featured in Forbes magazine twice. I wrote a white paper in 2004. I'd only been a financial advisor about 6 months, and I wrote a white paper on a better way to generate income, 50% more income than advisors talk about with the 4% rule. My broker dealer wouldn't let me do it because he makes less money if I do it that way. So I resigned, started my own firm. That's the real reason broker dealers approve or don't approve things. It's based on what the broker dealer makes. It has nothing to do with the client. So I've been a partner in 2 broker dealer firms. But that's an ugly business model. It really is. So Forbes magazine featured me in 2015. I was on Bloomberg Radio for a very long time. I had the Smart Money Hour radio show in Los Angeles on Sunday afternoons. When I got remarried, I canceled the radio show because Sundays are for family. When I was single, I didn't mind, but we stopped the radio show then. The reason I got featured in Forbes was I talked about retirement being about income, not about assets, because not all assets return the same income. And once you use that paradigm on how you manage things for clients, it changes how you invest. It changes how you manage things. Just because you haven't heard of something doesn't mean it's not so. Just because your CPA's never heard of this or attorney's never heard of this doesn't make it so. And this is just a reminder of that. The green is all the things you know you know. All right. Top over there, he understands a lot of things about aviation maintenance, right? The red is the things you realize you don't know. I don't speak Portuguese, and I know I don't speak Portuguese, but the yellow is all the things you don't even know, and there's a lot of that out there. This is a video. Did anybody go to the Tax For You website and watch the video? No? I'll play this for you.
Meet Jim and his sister Jill. They each own rental property. After years of dealing with the hassle of being landlords, they decide they want to sell their properties. Jim and Jill seek help to review their available options. The first option is to simply list the property for sale. However, due to the depreciation taken over the years, Uncle Sam and the state are going to take up to 37% of your capital gains. Both Jim and Jill think a 1031 exchange is the only other option to get out without the taxes, but that would require having to buy another property. Or they would have to invest in high-risk options that rarely perform as well as the brochure promises. Jim thinks he's out of options, so he decides to keep his property and suffer through the issues of being a landlord. Unlike Jim, Jill learns a fourth option, an installment sale trust, or IST. The IST is similar to a 1031 exchange, except Jill doesn't have to buy another rental property. She won't pay capital gains tax at the sale, and she gets a guaranteed 6% income stream plus some growth on the assets. The IST has been around for decades. It's secured by principally insured investments and professionally managed by a trustee. Jill decides to sell her property to an IST, making all proceeds of the transaction legally tax deferred. The IST fees are less than Jill's current property expenses, which gives her more income for retirement and for her heirs to inherit for generations. Jill's net income is about 30% better than her property was, and she's making more income without the risk, troubles, and worry of being a landlord. Meanwhile, Jim is stuck dealing with expenses, repairs, trash, toilets, and tenants. Don't be like Jim. Contact us today to learn how you can enjoy a steady income for generations to come with an installment sale trust. Our trustees are ready to buy your property today.
There's a separate video at Sell My Business Now, which talks about the selling a business, and the script's a little bit different, but it's very similar. The installment sale trust can be used for anything but publicly traded stock and sometimes inventory in a business. I've done a painting, $5 million painting. The guy paid something like $50,000 for it. I thought the frame was worth more than the painting. The ugliest thing you ever saw. Couldn't believe it sold for $5 million. But he was an attorney, wanted to defer the tax and everything he paid for this artwork because he retired and his wife wouldn't let him bring it home. She hated it so much. He hung it in his office, so he had to sell it. I did a coin and stamp collection. Some of these were actually colonial era hand canceled stamps. There were octagon gold pieces in there. There was some coins that came from some Austrian king that there were not known to be any left. So a museum in Austria actually bought them to go in the museum. It's over $20 million. Grandfather had handed the collection to the favored grandson, not included it in his estate, which means it should have been gift taxed. It should have been included in the estate or something. How do we clean up this mess? He sold it to the trust. The trust sold it at the auction. Over $18 million net of fees, expenses, and commissions and transportation, because armored vehicles had to move it all. Ended up in the trust, and he enjoys income from that for generations. And that just kind of washed, I hate using that word wash, but it kind of washed away all the other problems, because now it's a non-issue. All right. So we can use this to clean up transactions. We can use this to fix problems. During different parts of your life, you're in different phases. Most of you are young, you're still building your portfolios. Getting into investments is one thing. Getting out of an investment, that's when it gets sticky. So people think that all they have to do is 1031. So how many of you know of at least one old landlord that should probably sell, but he won't do it? Because he doesn't want to 1031 into something he doesn't want to own, like a REIT or a DST. He doesn't want to pay the tax. He doesn't want to lose the income. And he thinks his kids are going to inherit the property. The kids don't want the property. All right. So the kids are going to sell it and divide the money. Wife doesn't want the property. So the Apartment Owners Association of America did a survey in 2006. 1 in 5 investment properties make it to the next generation. They're sold for a whole series of reasons. Dad dies, mom doesn't want to manage it. Dad's in a home, mom needs more money than the property generates to pay for dad's care. All right. Dad dies, mom runs it, mom's in a home, the kids sell it to take care of mom. Or it does make it to the kids and they sell it and divide the money. Either way, taxes are paid. It doesn't work out. 1 in 5 make it. All right. And they always think they're that 1 in 5. I'm going to show you, as you're building up your real estate portfolio, how to target that landlord, pick up the property under better terms, do the renovations, and rent it out at market rate. Because that old landlord, he's not kept up the place. I guarantee right now, every one of you know of at least one apartment building owned by an old landlord who doesn't raise rents because he doesn't want anybody to move. The building's nice, neat, and clean, but it looks like 1980, right? So I show you how to target those buildings and buy them under better terms by using the trust. He'll sell. We'll convince him to sell. We'll deal with this. We'll deal with the attorney. If there is no deal, nobody's got a client. You don't have a building, we don't have a client, right? A trust client. So we deal with all of that. We give them a reason to transition over to this, because sitting as they are is not a good idea. They've depreciated the building out. Their tax deductions are paying more tax on rent than they've ever paid. All right. And at their age, they probably shouldn't be landlords anyway, even with a property manager. So this allows them to transition. So they should either sell and 1031 up to 2 properties, leverage up and get the rate of return up, or go to an IST. But now they want to go to opportunity zones. Opportunity zones are sold by securities broker dealer firms, and the tax benefits and everything else has already been priced in. There's a 14 to 18% load on those. I was a partner at 2 broker dealer firms. I know how it works behind the scenes that you don't see. None of those numbers are ever disclosed. They're not even legally required to be disclosed. You probably didn't know that. The load going into those things, and you're trapped in them. And all the people that bought into office buildings and opportunity zones, now that half the employees are working remote now, how's that going to work out? So I told people not to go into them. I'd never sell one of those to anybody. REITs, non-publicly traded REITs, are very dangerous. In 2008, you couldn't get out of one. You're watching this REIT go down, it even stops paying you checks because they didn't have the revenue to pay you, but you couldn't get out. DSTs are the same way. We have a few competitors offering similar programs to this. All of them, every one, 18 of them that I have done due diligence on, would fail an audit 3 ways. Any one of those 3 questions, much less all 3 questions asked by an IRS auditor, they will fail the audit. Why do they not do the things that we do to protect themselves from that audit? Because the advisor makes more money doing it the way they're doing it. He's willing to take the risk. All right. So our program doesn't have any of those things, because our program is the program created by Ernst & Young in the 1990s. So it's been around a very long time. It's very clean. It's very simple. It works for residential, commercial. It replaces a 1031. I can save a 1031. So if you hear of somebody has a failing 1031, we can save them from failing. The seller, the trustee, and the buyer are the 3 parties to the transaction. The trustee is the trust. The trust buys it from the seller, sells it to the buyer. The trust owns the property for 1 day in escrow. That's all. Seller sells the assets to the trust in exchange for interest-bearing notes. He controls the trust through the note. There must be a trustee, there must be arm's length to comply with the IRS tax code. They can't be the trustee, or it doesn't qualify for tax deferral. The trust sells the assets to a willing buyer in escrow in exchange for cash. The money, we buy two things inside the trust, possibly a third. We buy special annuities. I know annuities are a bad word. The ones we use average in the 8s and 9s, 7, 8s, and 9s. They're principally insured, and that gives the entire trust principal insurance. These are annuities that are used in trust. They're used in endowments for universities. These aren't the things that are sold on the street to people normally. And then we buy ETF portfolio with the other half of the money. But the entire trust has principal insurance against the trust. So there's zero risk to the client's principal. The payments are taxed as ordinary income, but you're given interest income on top of the full value of the asset. You get quarterly payments and the trustee gets paid quarterly to manage it. Our fees are 1% or less depending on the size of the trust. That's all in, 1% all in. That's why the trust generates more income than the property and more growth because of the assets it owns appreciate faster than real estate. And the trust has about 1/3 the expenses as a rental property, especially an apartment building. Less expenses, higher return on the sub-accounts, creates more income. It's that simple. At the culmination of the trust at the end of 10 years, if you want to leave, you take your cash and leave. You pay the taxes then. So the gains taxes are deferred. They're technically deferred, but they could be deferred till your great-grandchildren decide to pull the money out. You earn interest on all the money. You earn appreciation on all the money, not just the after-tax portion. When do you pay the taxes? Whenever you want to pay them. It's your choice. So you can earn interest on the money that would have been lost to taxes forever. That's a huge gain for you. So, but it's all principally insured. So at each 10-year interval, the annuity guarantees the original principal, plus you participate in the gains on the trust as well. So if you give me $1 million at the end of 10 years, I'll give you $1.4 million or more back. That's a 6% income on $1 million net of fees and expenses because it's a note and it's an interest note. All right. So it's a straight 6%, $60,000 a year. On $1 million apartment building, they're not net $60,000 a year after all expenses. They're just not. All right. This shows a primary residence, which has more deductions. So this is a good example. This is a residence that was sold in Cupertino, California, Silicon Valley, where people bought houses for $300,000. Now they're worth $2 million. They bought it for $350,000. They did $75,000 worth of improvements. The cost basis of the property is now $425,000. The commissions and escrow expenses were $135,000. The gain on the sale $1,565,000. Section 121 is the $250,000 per husband and wife, $500,000 total, that is exempted from gains. Right now, Biden, Pelosi, Schumer are trying to take that away. The capital gain is $1,065,000. The taxes on the gains would have been $301,000 state and federal combined. They would have only netted $763,000. They bought a property for $350,000, improved it by $75,000, would have only netted $763,000. By using the installment sale trust, the net benefit to them is 39.43% better than not using it. Imagine how much better it would have been on an apartment building that doesn't get the $500,000 exclusion. And they've depreciated that $350,000 they paid for it down to almost zero. So oftentimes the net benefit is over 50% better than not using the installment sale trust. Now, these are pro forma reports that we will generate for each property. You introduce us to a landlord, we will give them a reason to sell to you. We will show, here's your income and benefit and appreciation. If you keep the property, here's the side-by-side benefit of using the installment sale trust. You get more income, appreciation. It works for buildings that have been owned more than 20 years, where they've paid down the mortgage. That's your target market. We will show you how to target those buildings and pick them up under better terms, because the trust will carry back 20% on the purchase. So you only have to come up with 80% to buy it. So now you have the money to do the renovations, the improvements, and rent it out at market rates and get the rents up. Now you got new rent rolls and new appraisal on the building. Now you can refinance us off. You have 36 months to do that. So we can help you pick up those buildings. And we do that work. The other benefit to the installment sale trust is we have a bank that will purchase life insurance policies on the owners of the trust. The bank pays for it because they make a rate of return on the cash they put in the policy. It becomes part of the legal reserves for the bank. The bank borrows the money from the Fed at 1%. They loan it to the policy at 2.5%. The cash in the policy earns 7 or 8% after expenses. It's a permanent investment grade insurance contract. The bank will only do it over a trust. In other words, they won't do it to just anybody in the street that wants to buy one. Why do we do this? Because we can. And you're participating in the legal reserve system at the bank. When you pass away, your heirs inherit the trust and everything it's grown to, the income from the trust, and twice the value of the trust as a tax-free death benefit over and above the trust. That beats any step up in basis or any future value that property ever would have grown to. So that 70, 75-year-old landlord can exit, have more income, less risk, no longer be a landlord, is doing something better for his heirs. He now has liquidity for when he has Alzheimer's or his wife has Alzheimer's, they need care. They're in a better position all the way around. They can lock in all the gains that they've spent 40 years in real estate, 50 years in real estate growing to, and they can sell it to those of you that are still building your portfolio. So the real estate was a great investment. They would not have had this wealth had they not got into real estate. But at some point in time, this is better and more profitable for them to transition to. And that's what we help them do. All right.
And also, it doesn't fluctuate like the market. The real estate market is up right now, but just give it a couple of years or a couple months, who knows, it'll go down again. So if that's when they're selling, it's going to be really hard to get all these profits. But with this, it only goes up and compounds every day.
I had a client that refused to do this in 2006. His wife, who was younger, died, just suddenly died. She had cancer and was dead in 3 months. She wanted him to do it, but she passed away first. He died in the latter half of 2008, and the kids sold the property. How much better off would the children have been if in 2006 he had done this? All right, so at some point, this is better. All the accounts have dual signature. All the accounts, they have to sign in and sign for anything that we're doing. There can be UCC1 filings. We will do anything the client wants us to do to make them feel secure that we're not going to Bernie Madoff their money. We can't take the money out of the account. All the banking's done through Boston Private Bank and dual signature accounts. So the client has to approve anything we're doing. They are in control, but they are in arm's length control. They can't be the trustee. That violates part of the tax code. And if they were the trustee, they don't get tax deferral. All right. So like if they sold it to their living trust, it's a different type of trust. They don't get tax deferral for doing that. Okay. Who's involved in this? CB Administrative Services. That is the trustee. It's a corporate trustee. The trust administrator is Morris Chubb. So it's a corporate level trustee service is what it is. The legal and tax law, all that stuff goes through Lathrop GPM. They're a top 50 national law firm, 700 attorneys on staff. All trust services banking goes through Boston Private Bank through their trust division. We're actually allowed to use Lathrop and Boston in our advertising. They have vetted us top to bottom. All right. The Investment Advisors Qualified Financial, that's my firm. We manage the assets in the trust. This is section 453, the installment sale provisions in the tax code. You could read this section and think you're following the tax law, and you're not. There are 85 years worth of tax court rulings and how these things are to be handled. You have to know that. All of that is built into our program. The documents for the trust are like 9 pages. The note is 5 pages. The MOU is 6 pages. Memorandum of Understanding when you retain the trustee. You'll be shocked how short and succinct the forms are to do this. The documents are to do this. It's very plain. It's very simple. We don't have any fine print because we don't need it. The secret sauce is knowing all the things not to do that would cause you to lose an audit and get in trouble. That's really the service we're providing. There's Morris Chubb. He manages endowments for universities and nonprofits in the Bay Area. He was a CFO for several tech companies in Silicon Valley that IPO'd. And when I met him, he was doing some of this trustee work for endowments and nonprofits. And I asked if he would do trustee work for me. There's Phil Johnson. He's the attorney at Lathrop GPM that's been assigned to us, but we have the entire company at our disposal. And then there's a picture of myself that is a little outdated. I need to update that. What kind of questions do you have for me, though?
This is an entirely new topic for myself. Heath is a numbers guy, but so one of the things that I'm struggling with is envisioning communicating with a current owner, right? And walking them through a process to get them on the phone to talk to you about what is the best course of action for them exiting their property.
First off, I'll give you a free marketing page at taxforyou.com with the video.
Okay.
It'll be connected to your email address. Let the video do the work. And if they want information, they type it in there, you get an email. We get one too, and we start following up on it immediately. But we also know on our CRM, our customer relationship management software, who gets that deal. You also tell the landlord, we have trustees, because the trustee buys the property in escrow and then owns it for a day and then it's sold to you. Let's say you're buying it. Let's say Hutch wants to buy this 10-unit building and add it to his portfolio.
Okay.
We negotiate the front end of that deal with the seller so they know they're not paying tax on the sale. They're not losing their income. In fact, their income's going up, their appreciation's going up. We communicate with their CPA. Christian Ramsey, a member of our firm, he wrote a book on this stuff. He teaches an 8-hour course where CPAs get 8 hours continuing education credit. We train CPAs. So CPAs and attorneys will have opinions about these things. If they've not been trained by us, it's an unqualified opinion. The only CPAs and attorneys I've ever met that actually understood this correctly formerly worked at Ernst & Young at some point in their career. And then they immediately understand this and know what it is. This is done about 5,000 or 8,000 times a year. You just don't hear about it as often. It's done most often in mergers and acquisition deals, especially on the real estate in the deal. So when a business is bought and sold, right?
Gotcha.
And so it's a lot of, I had a guy down here that sold a pharmaceutical testing company in Irvine, a lot of pharmaceutical companies here in Irvine, California. He says, this is familiar, this is familiar, this is familiar. And then he calls me back because he was selling a fourplex. And he goes, yeah, I'm getting income from one of these when I sold my company down in Irvine. I didn't realize that's what it was. Because he just, the M&A lawyers just put the whole deal together, and that's how they deferred the tax on the sale of his company, right? So it's done far more often than you think. We have some competitors out there that offer similar programs. Some of them are doing a lot of marketing. 18 competitors, about 9 of them aren't even in business anymore. Every single one of them would fail an IRS audit 3 ways. Any one of those items would fail the audit, and they would fail all 3 if a smart auditor knew to ask the right question. I've done due diligence on all of them. Why do they not fix those flaws in their system? Because the financial advisors behind it make more money with those flaws there. That's why. I'm not kidding. So it's a cruel world. It's a shrewd world. Be careful. So we have designed those things into our system. For example, let's say your apartment building owner, $1 million building, he's still got $400,000 worth of base. We will show him how to take out that $400,000 before escrow. That gets paid off in escrow because he doesn't have to roll over his basis. He only has to roll over the taxable portion. Well, that's technically working against our own interest because we get paid to manage assets under management, right? That's $400,000 I won't have as an asset under management. Why do we do that? Because it's the right thing to do. That's why. All right. Now, you know how often the client comes back and says, yeah, I could roll that out, but you know something? I'm giving you all the money. I asked him why. And he goes, because now you're responsible for 6% return on that money, not me. So he gave all of it to us. That happens often. About half the time the client says, no, I want you to have all of it. I want income on all of it. I want you to be responsible for it. The other half of the time they pull it out and do other things with it. What I'm going to help you guys do is find properties. Every one of you know of at least one old landlord with that old building that should sell, but just won't do it. I'm the one that gets you the deal, gets you the 20% carry back in the trust for 36 months, lets you keep some dry powder to do the renovations, move the tenants out, renovate the apartments. In the case of California, the West Coast, do the seismic work that they haven't done on the building, get it up to code, everything else. Rent it out at market rates. Now you've got a new appraisal on the building and new rent rolls. At today's interest rates, you can refinance that property in 12 to 18 months after you've done this work. And you could have 30% equity in a building and none of your cash left in the building. There's a guy here in LA who does 5 or 6 deals a year with me that way. He uses me to get the owner to sell.
So you're saying we could go into a deal, pretty much no money, but the renovation costs.
Yep. You
Interesting.
see, when you're negotiating a deal, there's price and there's terms. Always give them the price up front. Start negotiating terms. Then they don't want to give you some terms. Well, if I can't get that term, then we got to adjust the price. But let them think about the price, not the terms. Keep them focused on the price. Greed. They'll focus. I'm getting my money. I'm getting all my money. Yeah, you can do that. I'm getting my money. I'm getting my money. That's how I've bought and sold over 30 companies. Give them whatever they want for the company, as long as I get the terms I want. So there's a business brokerage called Link Business. Go to linkbusiness.com. I bought the US franchisor and the Los Angeles franchise. And I was the franchisor for all the locations nationwide. I bought it with no money out of pocket. None. Paid myself and my wife a salary to run it, sold it 12 months later for 40% over what I paid for it. What was the rate of return on my money?
Infinite.
Exactly. I had no money in the deal. So negotiate terms.
Yeah, these are the type of conversation that he geeks out about.
Use me to get better terms. Because if they don't have to 1031, they don't have to pay the tax. They're not going to lose the income. They're going to get more income. And I can create a situation where their heirs will get twice the value of the trust tax-free, separate from the trust upon their passing.
Yeah, so I got 2 questions. One about leverage and the other about income from the trust. Now, for the leverage, if the owner currently have leverage on the property, is that still a possibility of acquisition?
Of course. In fact, if they have mortgage over basis, we can even clean that.
Okay. What does
That's
that
a
mean?
problem with some people. They've borrowed against it, and bought other properties. Now they have a $500,000 mortgage on a $2 million apartment building that they've depreciated down to $100,000. Now they're going to have to pay tax irregardless on that $400,000 or 1031 to something that is similar. A dirty little secret about 1031s, about a third of them end up with at least some taxes on the other side because they didn't have the same ratios out the other side. Even if you're going to 1031, use us to do it. Move it through the trust to the next property, because then you get to buy the next property at that purchase price. You're not carrying over the low basis and redepreciate all over again. So there's just a dozen reasons you'd want to use us. I was all worried about what Biden, Pelosi, Schumer are doing, and I'm not being political. I haven't had a president I like since Reagan. So they all suck for different reasons. Hey, the last guy was a loudmouth, but at least he was right about economics and peace treaties. I mean, he got those things done. Just gave me a headache every time he got in front of a microphone. So, right? But he was right about a lot of stuff, so you can knock him all you want. These people here don't seem to care. They just see a bunch of people with a lot of money and they want to take it. Well, at some point, taxation becomes theft. It does. And they all suck for different reasons. I hate them all. So anybody who spent any time with enough congressmen aren't real impressed with most of them, I'll be honest with you. They're not the sharpest pencils in the box, most of them. They just do whatever they're told. So what are they doing to us? So I was worried about they're going to get rid of the 1031. I don't think that's going to actually happen, quite honestly. Wall Street's pounding the hell out of them. Goldman Sachs does not want to lose 1031 over to all the Delaware statutory trust and the REITs and stuff that they offer. Broker-dealer firms don't want to lose that business. So I don't think all of that's going to go through. Are they going to take away step up in basis? Yeah, that's going away. Are they going to increase the gains tax? Yes, they're going to. You know why? You've heard the old saying, they're spending like drunken sailors. No, they're not. A drunken sailor spends his own money.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Marine Corps.
And I heard another old saying, it's giving power and money to congressmen is like giving whiskey and car keys to teenage boys. It's just not a good idea, you know? So what are they doing? It's like with every generation of Congress, they get dumber. What the hell? Well, I got to thinking about it, though. Rich and I were laughing. I can't complain too much because people really need us now. I mean, business is coming. Ever since they started talking this stuff, my phone's ringing off the hook. My calendar's packed because we have a solution for this. But here's the thing. We've had a solution for this all along. When you've been really successful at real estate, how do you transition to the next thing? It's very difficult. And getting into an investment's easy. Getting out, that's the hard part. And I don't hate taxes. I really don't. We live in a great place. We really do. I remember what they took out of my paycheck when I lived and worked in England. Holy crap. And then the healthcare sucked. I mean, it's free, but it's not free. Look at your paycheck. You could have bought 3 Kaiser plans for what they were taking out of my paycheck, and Kaiser's better than anything I got over there. So it was horrible. So we complain, but people are walking across 40 miles of desert to get here. So don't knock it too much, okay? On the other hand, you have to manage expenses. Taxes are an expense. That's all they are. Pay your taxes. We're not talking about avoiding taxes. We're not talking about not paying your fair share, right? And do I believe a single mom with 3 kids should pay less taxes than a billionaire? Hell yeah. Okay. But at some point, it's theft. At some point, it has a negative impact to the economy. You know, I told a client of mine recently, keep raising taxes on your boss, then go hit him up for a pay raise and better benefits. Let me know how that goes. She goes, I never thought of it like that. Yeah. So there's got to be a balance somewhere. We provide that for you. We provide a streamlined way for you to move between assets, defer the tax. You're still going to pay tax on the income you enjoy. You're just going to get to reinvest and roll over and grow that wealth. And that wealth's what creates jobs. That wealth's what creates industry. That wealth is what gets reinvested to create things like Tesla. Okay? So you want that to keep growing and keep getting reinvested. And that's what we're helping people do, a streamlined way of doing that. Our process is not going to go away. The tax laws that they're coming up with are not going to change what it is we do. I'll tell you why. The billionaires aren't going to let them change trust law. Because for every dollar that billionaire claims he's worth, he's got that much or more sitting in a trust somewhere. Okay? All right? I happen to know you can take everything Trump owns. There's a trust somewhere you can't touch that has the same amount in it. All right? I know this isn't going away because this exact process is how Romney exited Bain Capital. How did he walk away with $100 million and pay no tax on it? I can show you exactly how he did it. Okay. Now, the $100 million got reinvested and created all kinds of other companies. The $100 million is now worth $400 million because he went on and created other things. That's not a bad thing. Deferring tax is not a bad thing. All right. So the income that comes from the trust you pay tax on, the IRS isn't worried about that. Also, an installment sale is used in every SBA loan. When you go buy a business, every owner carries back 10% so you can get your SBA financing. They're not going to change that rule. It's the backbone of a whole series of things that happen. Also, trust law is not going to change. They're not going to touch that. All right. So we know we're safe. We know we are a solution for these things. Those of you that are building up your inventory right now, building up your portfolio of properties, I'll help you find properties by helping that old landlord exit. I'll help you get better terms in the process. All right. So we'll carry back up to 20% for up to 36 months. Now, from personal experience, unfortunately, I've had this happen once. If you don't refinance that note in 36 months, we will own the building. All right. Why? I represent the client. I represent the trust. I will act in my client's best interest. You won't like me anymore, but I will represent my client. It has to be that way. Our entire process and everything we do is ethical, transparent. We buy fidelity bonding on everything we do. Every time I sign my name, it's worth $6 million. Why? Because I'm human. I might make a mistake. There's 2 malpractice insurance policies, one for 1 million, and anything the 1 million doesn't cover, there's a $5 million policy. Because what if I make a mistake on a document and it costs the client something? I'm not above making a mistake. You're an aviation maintenance guy. I reversed 2 wires in a cannon plug one day. When they put on the autopilot, the aircraft pitched to the left hard. And the pilot had to pull that breaker really quick, pull it out of the hover. We're on the hover pad at Tustin, Marine Corps Air Station Tustin, between those 2 big hangars you used to have.
Yeah.
The blades almost hit the deck. And you know which 2 wires I reversed, right? I'm not above making a mistake. Why were they not mad at me? When they went for the test flight, I climbed in with them. That was the avionics technician. Only mistake I ever made working in an aircraft. We all climbed out, shut it down, and we shared a pack of cigarettes for about 20 minutes before anybody said a word. Just sat there smoking. Scared the hell out of all of us. Took me all night, about 2 a.m, before I found my mistake. I went over those. Went over everything I did again and again and again and again. And finally, I found my mistake. Because if you remember, in the aircraft, all the wires are white. They just have different wire numbers on them. It was a corroded cannon plug, and I'd repaired the cannon plug, but I'd reversed 2 of the pins when I reassembled it. So mistakes happen. We have fidelity bonding on every trust. We make a mistake, the client's going to get their money back. If I make a mistake, my signature is insured. Why? Because it's not my money. So that 36 months, that 20% for 36 months is at 7%. No payments are due. The interest is paid whenever you refinance off. So it's cheaper than hard money, but it allows you to pick up a building, keep some dry powder under excellent terms until you get it cleaned up and turned around. So only once have we had somebody didn't refinance off. Theirs was for 24 months. 2 things happened from that experience. One, by the way, they ended up finding the money and taking care of the building. We ended up not taking it back in time. We didn't take it back. We started the process. Now we go 36 months and we structure it a little bit differently. Some of it wasn't his fault. His business model failed because the city of Los Angeles, you can't get him to show up to do an inspection. One inspection got delayed before the next inspection got delayed. He had to do seismic work on the building and it just snowballed into taking forever. It took him 6 months to get a couple tenants out. You understand what happened? So it wasn't really his fault. We'll help you negotiate the deal under better terms. We will gain the client. We just need the introduction. And that at that tax-free website, we'll give you a marketing website to generate the leads. And what you do is you start dripping old landlords. We'll show you how to get a title report on a bunch of properties and target those properties. And I'll provide you support to do it. I don't participate on your side. I don't charge you anything for it because we want the trust business.
Got you. Yeah, so you get the trust, we get the property. So minus the, you said for the SBA, of course we got to come in with that 10%, right? But if it's not a SBA loan, then you can source that 20% for 36 months.
Yeah, that was in the case of a business selling an SBA.
Okay,
But,
what is the? We've looked at a hotel deal recently, and we had an SBA, we qualified for SBA.
Yeah.
And that's one
You're
of the things
buying
we
a
talk
business
about.
and the property, right?
Correct. And this was ideal. It's ideal for that project. But I guess hindsight, right? Now, so what does it cost for that 20%?
It's 7%. We charge 7% for the 20%.
Okay.
And you have 36 months. There's no payment due. The interest runs until you pay it off.
7% annually, right?
7%. Yeah.
Okay.
7.
Got you. So for these folks who are rolling their money into their into the trust, this is how they create an income from that 7%?
They're not getting any payments on that, but the annuity we use and the ETF portfolio, half the money is divided between each. It's a highly managed ETF portfolio. Every morning there's a series of trades he makes, then he waits to the next morning and makes a series of trades. It's managed by software that determines which ETFs stay in the portfolio, which ones don't. So it's not, somebody, licking their finger, checking the wind. Nobody's watching CNBC to find out what to buy, right? So
Okay.
this is very mathematically done, this ETF portfolio. It averages about 15-1 the last 10 years with less volatility than the market. So the compounded return is actually better than that. That's just the mean average. We don't use just ETFs because we have to give principal insurance to the whole account, and that's why we use the annuity. So the annuity actually gives a principal insurance wrapper to the whole account. It's a specialty annuity product that we use. So because of that, we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure the client will always get back original principal. And the note's on a 10-year interval. So we can't put all the money at risk. We have to have the principally insured annuity that will double in 10 years. Actually, it doubles usually in about 8.1. So that way we know we can honor the note we've offered, because as trustees, we have a fiduciary responsibility to do that. Could we make more money investing in the trust differently? Oh yeah, we could. But as trustees, we're not allowed to take that risk. Well, we could, but we can't get a fidelity bond to insure what we're doing. So they won't insure it. So we have to do this. That's how we get the fidelity bond so inexpensive. The fidelity bond per trust is $5,000 or less per trust.
Okay.
So the client is insured. They're going to get their original principal back. Now, we do all of that. We don't want you explaining the trust. That's our job. We'll get you the building. We'll talk to their CPA. We'll give the due diligence to the CPA. We'll have our tax attorneys talk to their CPA. The CPA never believes me because I'm not a CPA, but he believes the tax attorney. And of course, I've done these conference calls for 17 years now, so I can answer any question you'd ask the attorney. But they want to hear it from the attorney. So Phil Johnson takes those calls daily, constantly from us. So we have a conference call. We go over all of it. Now, we want to train the CPA because they've got at least 5 more clients like this one. Plus, the CPA can get anywhere from 4 to 8 hours continuing education for going through the training with us. He gets a certificate for that. So he actually gets CE hours for going through the training with us. So, and then you get a building under better terms. All right. So it's a real win-win. If any of you are realtors, we show realtors how to use us to get listings that never would have been a listing in the first place. You have to satisfy that old landlord. You got to satisfy a couple of things for them. One, their principal's not at risk. 2, they're not going to lose income or lose taxes. And 3, what are their kids going to inherit? Because all you guys are pretty young. I mean, Richard and I are old men here, right? So I'll speak for myself. The older you get, the more you think about what are you leaving behind for your kids. The older you get, the more you do things like I did. I sold my AMG convertible Mercedes and bought a Prius. Pissed off the salesman. They had to write me a check on the trade-in. So I got a car and a check. When I walked him out the parking lot and showed him my trade-in, he was pissed. He was just pissed. This commission got crunched pretty bad. So I love that stupid Prius. I drive the hell out of that car. I'm not even nice to it. I wash it once a month, whether it needs it or not. At some point, you start thinking about that. You really do. And you start realizing that it's going to be harder for our kids than it was for us. It's going to be. The world's changed. It's harder now. And that's how this landlord thinks. And you have to satisfy that he's going to accomplish those things. All right. And you back into it differently than you would think. You guys think, oh, I got to give him the deal of the century and all these terms and stuff. Believe it or not, there's other stuff on his mind or her mind that they want out of this. And it's not always what you think. The number of clients I've had say, I was getting that much money from the apartment building. We don't really need that. We've got all these other investments we can live on. What if you only sent us this much? How much would the trust grow to for my kids? They do that all the time.
So I would assume this only works for off-market property and not property that's already listed by a broker?
No, because I can eliminate the need for a 1031. And I'll go right around that other realtor and talk straight to the client, because this doesn't involve the realtor. He's going to get a commission on the sale price either way. Now he thinks he's going to get 2 commissions, one on the sale and one on the up leg on the 1031, right? He's not going to get that if the client uses us. But if the client can't find an up leg that he wants on a 1031, there's no sale anyway, right? I eliminate the need for that. Now here's the other thing clients do with me very often. They go into the installment sale trust They don't do a 1031, then they take half the money and put it in an LLC that goes and acquires another building. So now they got half the money in the installment sale trust generating income with liquidity and half the money in another building that's leveraged. So their cash on cash return on that other building's double digit again. And they didn't do a 1031. And they got to depreciate that other building all the way, all over again. They weren't carrying over a lower basis. So they got better tax treatment there as well. So all the way around, it was a better deal for them to use us than not use us. Either way, it's a better deal for them to use us versus not use us.
It basically comes down to, you know, what do they want to do with all that capital gains tax? Do they want to pay it now or basically never?
You can defer, the taxes owed are technically deferred, but they can be deferred for generations. The trust renews every 10 years, indefinitely. When I'm dead and gone, there's a succession plan in the company. Morris Chubb and Craig Redler are current trustees. There is, you may have heard of Craig Redler. He's the famous Cook Island Trust guy. He only does trustee work for his existing clients, and he has a bunch of those. But there's a succession plan for them as well, and for me as well. So this can go on for generations. So, Keith?
Oh man, I just I sent you a LinkedIn request, and I'm sending you a message thanking you
Oh, okay. Yeah.
for coming on tonight because this is amazing.
Oh man, we could have used you in the past couple months. Oh man.
Yeah.
Let me help you
I was
close
just-
the deals. I want the trust business. You want the property.
Well, we lost out on a deal in which we made a higher offer than someone else, but the other person was doing a 1031 exchange, and the owner wanted to get into triple net leases. But from what you're saying, it seems like if he would have been presented this idea, it might have been a little bit more favorable for him than kind of what he was trying to do. So I was
Probably.
just I wish
Probably.
we would have known about you 2 years ago.
So, well, I'll help you as many deals as we can. Also, if it turns out the discussion of this is sidelining, distracting the deal, turns out the client's getting confused, it's delaying things, they were going to 1031 anyway, they're going to put the money with the accommodator, start looking for a property, whatever. If it turns out that somehow the water's getting muddy and all this stuff, watch how quick I just back off. So I want somebody getting a deal. Both of us or you. All right. So one way or another. I want somebody getting a close. The client decides not to do this. Hey, he or she is an adult. If they decide to do a 1031, doesn't work, that's on them, right? We're not responsible for that.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is, if you know a title person in the area that you want to work, in the area you're targeting, I can show you how to run a target list of properties that meet a certain criteria and how to drip market that list with the video to get them to engage, show some interest, start the conversation. You can start picking up properties under better terms that were never on the market in the first place. By the time you look at a property already in LoopNet or something like that, they're already thinking about selling, they're already thinking about what they're going to do, and they're already thinking about the terms and thinking about the property they want to get in 1031, right? So now you're competing. You go to that old landlord. How many of you driven down a street of nice apartment buildings and there's that one building that it's clean, it's neat, but it looks like 1980, right? It's got an old landlord, paid off the mortgage years ago, hasn't raised rent on half the tenants because he's afraid they're going to move, right? That's the building you want. Because you're going to renovate it, rent it out at market rates, at those new rent rolls and new appraisals. That's the deal you want. Not the one that's already selling, because they've already figured out the last dollar they can get for it out of the deal. Everything else, right?
And what about the ladies on the group here? What do you think?
The other people are quiet. Gay's quiet. Jamesia hasn't said anything. Dwayne, everybody's quiet.
I'm just taking it all in. I was just listening to you on Brian Briscoe's, and you said the same thing. I'm processing everything.
Mhm.
And then I come up with all my questions later. But I am here.
My wife works with me and she says, all you do is repeat yourself all day long. Yeah.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff to know, especially with me
It's
being so
different
early on
audience.
getting into the business. Mm-hmm.
Rich gets tired of hearing me because I say the same thing again and again and again and again. Even when we talk to the clients that are selling, right, that we're getting to use us and stuff. Rich is like a broken record, right?
No, it's always different a little bit. But one
Is it?
story I do like is the one where the apartment owner, he said, "I'll never sell, I'll never sell," and then eventually he passed away, and his wife found your proposal in his desk, and she said, "Well, why the hell didn't he do this? This is a great deal." So she came back.
I said, well,
You never know.
she was an accountant at Boeing. She looked at the numbers and she says, why didn't he do this? Because she, and I said, well, because he was stubborn. She goes, yeah, he was stubborn. You're right. Can I still do it? Here's another one. Guy refused to do it. Wife wanted to do it. Finally, a few months go by, I quit talking to him because he just wasn't going to do it. He had a 4-unit building where they have the 2-bedroom, 1-bath downstairs, the 1-bedroom, 1-bath upstairs. He had a 400-pound tenant who eventually broke the toilet in the bathroom through the floor because the plywood and everything got soggy. The pipe off the bottom of the toilet broke. Sewage ran out of the pipe through the ceiling into the kitchen of the downstairs unit. They woke up in the morning and everything's coming down, right? This was on a Sunday morning. He has to run over there. He called not ServPro, but somebody like that. Had to move everybody out, put them in a hotel, everything else, right? This was the Sunday morning that their eldest son was christening their eldest grandchild, also a son. This was a Chinese family from Taiwan. And you understand oldest son, oldest grandson, that's significance in that culture. And in Taiwan, they have a lot of Catholics because when Mao chased all the Christians out of China, they went with Chiang Kai-shek across to Taiwan, if you know your Asian history, right? So there's a lot of Catholics in Taiwan, actually. Anyway, big deal. Baby being christened, whole thing. Grandpa wasn't there for it. In fact, he didn't get back to the house for the dinner afterwards where all the family came over. When he got there, everybody had left. The caterers were cleaning up. His wife met him at the door. She said, you have 2 choices. You're going to sell it or you're going to live in it. You're staying at Peter's house tonight. That was their oldest son. She closed the door in his face. He hates me. When I see her twice a year, because I now manage all of their retirement and everything else, right? He sits in the living room with Fox News so loud you can't hear anything. We have to go sit in the backyard and they'll, under the umbrella to talk about her finances and stuff because he hates me, won't speak to me. They're making twice as much money from the trust as they ever made from the property. But he's mad because she made him go to Paris. He's afraid of heights. He had to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower. She made him go to Venice. She made him go to Rome. She makes him go to Hawaii. And he hates traveling. He's a homebody, never wants to leave the house. He hates me. I'm serious. He's never said anything to me since the sale of that property. But they make twice as much income. Now their son Peter loves me. I managed one of his rollover 401ks from a previous employer even. So everybody's happy. Just he hates me because I conspired with a wife to make him sell his property. So you're going to run into those stubborn old landlords that are just that way. As a financial advisor, I'm very good at making sure I talk to the husband and the wife. Because believe it or not, the wives tend to make better financial decisions in these scenarios. I'm not kidding. I have hundreds and hundreds of clients, all right, that are one-on-one. Then I have thousands of clients where I work with another financial advisor alongside another financial advisor. Guys, the wives usually make better financial decisions. I'm not kidding. You really do. And they tend to be better at assessing risk. They really do. You know how guys are. It's amazing any of us make it to adulthood, all the
got that right.
right. I have a son, he's 6. I still know he hasn't killed himself already. I haven't caught him on the roof yet, but so women are more cautious about those things. They just tend to be. And especially at that point in life, they're concerned about income, safety, security, and they view the trust as having obviously better income. And it does have better safety and security at that point in life than keeping the property. So how does that old landlord transition out of real estate? Getting into an investment's easy. Getting out's the hard part. Let us show them how to transition. You end up with the property under better terms on a deal that you're not even competing with anybody else on. And we'll show you how to market to those landlords and find those deals. Because I'm doing it right now. Rich, how many deals do you have in your CRM right now?
I was just talking to some investors in Texas. They've got over 1,000 units they're trying to sell.
Yeah.
So that's just one deal. Not to mention we can do this with businesses and Bitcoin and Dogecoin and basically anything.
So right now through our drip marketing system, Richard has 1,607 leads in various stages in the CRM that he's working, 1,607. So we can show you how to generate that pipeline of people that you're drip marketing to that eventually come to the table. And we just need the introduction. And hopefully, if you want to learn how to bird dog these things, ask Rich. That's his call sign, bird dog.
Just talk to people.
Talk to people. On LinkedIn, you're going to stumble into people that want to sell a business and other things, and we can pay you for that. All right. Now, are you guys looking for just apartment buildings? What are you looking for? Triple net commercial? What?
I don't know. We had someone a couple of weeks ago talk about triple net, and I was like, man, maybe we should pivot. Triple net seems like an awesome space.
It is, but when you have a vacancy, it's a long vacancy, then there's a lot of expense to get somebody back in there with tenant improvements. And you have more vacancies than you realize. It's triple net for a reason.
Yeah, I was telling him the one of the reasons I had a chance to buy an office building here in the town I live in, and one of the reasons I didn't is because it's one of those things. It just when my wife and I wanted to buy a Prius, all of a sudden we see Priuses everywhere, right? And as soon as I was thinking about buying an office building, all I saw was office building for rent signs everywhere.
Vacant.
And while the place had like 8 out of the 11 shops filled up, if they started to go, I wasn't confident in being able to find someone who would want that space to find a business. That's one of the reasons of why I like residential real estate, is because everybody's going to always need a place to live, but you're not always going to have businesses that are going to need the space that you have available.
Commercial is a similar but different business model.
Yeah.
You have to hold back far more cash reserves than you do with apartment buildings. There's other issues involved. You tend to have less turnover, but when you have turnover, it's not vacant for 2 months while you clean the carpets and do some paint and get another tenant in there. When you have turnover, it's vacant for a year. Then you got to spend money to get them in there and tenant improvements. So if you're going to rent one of those, make sure you have at least 2 name brands in there. Have a Starbucks on one end of the building and a what's that burrito place? Chipotle on the other. Yeah, Chipotle. Something like that, so that are very long term. But those buildings are hard to come by because once somebody has one of those, they're not selling them.
So as far as if someone has apartment buildings that aren't paid off, does something like this IST still work?
Yes.
For example, I have a 16 unit that we bought 2 years ago. I actually increased the value by 100K over the last 2 years. Recently did a refi and pulled out, I don't know, 50K of it. And so when it comes time to sell that, would it be you that I would call and say, hey, I'm thinking about selling this, or would I try to sell it first and then call you later? Or what would be the benefits of running through an IST? Be something where I would try to buy another building, or could I just use the IST for?
Use the IST as the go-between.
Mm-hmm.
you know, accommodator, because use a 1031 accommodator, use us like an accommodator. Our process is and even our documents in escrow are similar to an accommodator. The difference is with us, the money goes to the accommodator trustee, is the full name of a 1031 accommodator trustee. Money goes to the trustee and just stays there, and you have a note against it. You can direct the trustee to put up to half the money into a limited liability company that you use as a down payment on the next property. Then you're not carrying over a lower basis. And there are some things we can do to help you if you have mortgage over basis. We can defer the tax on that. We have to structure the deal a little bit, but we can defer the tax on that. So,
But to the buyer, it's pretty much the same because they're still paying whatever price you negotiate. There's just
yeah,
it's
the
the
same as the
signing
person you're selling it to.
that's signing the deed instead of you.
It's that simple. So it can be an easier way to transition between things. We would work best with you though, helping you acquire buildings under better terms. And you know how when you buy rental properties, you want to buy the ugliest house in the nicest neighborhood, right? That's one that's most likely to appreciate. It's the same thing for apartments. Buy the ugliest apartment building in the nicest neighborhood. And there's a reason it's the ugliest building. The landlord is living off the income and not putting money back into the building. All right, so we can be a solution for that. Also, look for buildings that have the kids inherited the building. Now you've got 2 or 3 kids living off the income from the building. And that's the other reason the building has, you know, deferred maintenance and everything else, because they're living off the income from the building and not reinvesting into the building. Well, what happens is those kids transition over to the installment sale trust and they get income from the trust and don't have to deal with the building anymore. And then you can pick up the building under better terms. Do the renovations, get your rent rolls up, and you're good to go. So I'm going to leave you guys. You can find everything about me at kevinbrunner.com. And then we can set up a marketing site for you to drip to these landlords, have them watch the video, have them inquire, have them order a pro forma. Doesn't cost me anything to do a pro forma. And we'll do a side-by-side comparison, the IST versus keeping the building. And let us give them the motivation to sell. Yes, Rich?
We can do that for Heath right now on his building.
Yeah, on his building, we can do the same thing. All right.
Sounds great.
Email
Really appreciate
questions.
it.
We'll send you all the materials. We'll send you all the due diligence. We're incredibly transparent because duplicating what we do, good luck. It took me years to
It's
get
all
this
good.
going.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, Rich, appreciate you setting this up for us.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Let's stay connected and let's make some money.
All right. Well,
Exactly.
we'll see you next Monday.
Sir.
Rich has a client. No, his other partner, David Evans, has a guy who's got 3 buildings, a guy who's got 2 buildings.
Yeah, we have three buildings we need to sell right away. So if you're looking to buy in California,
And we can help you get some very good terms on those buildings.
finance it too.
California. Yeah, I was not looking in I'll be in California in about 50 days. I'll be living in San Diego.
Oh,
What
really?
Yeah. So I don't know a lot of folks buying properties in California. Is those property cash flowing?
Yeah.
Barely.
Is it-
Yeah, the cap rates here are single digits.
Yes,
No.
that's what I'm seeing as well.
Some parts of the country are double digits, but not LA.
Although when our clients list buildings, I don't have a problem selling them.
True.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not mistaken. The appreciation over in California is pretty good. You know, so a lot of time it makes sense.
Yep. When we got a buyer on the
Investors.
phone, I don't say this, but I'm not buying any properties in California. So.
Yeah, we're not looking in California either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right, appreciate you.
Thanks, Kevin.